What if every terrible decision your government's ever made, every pointless war, every economic collapse, every policy that made you want to scream into a pillow, happened because we've been choosing leaders the way we choose breakfast cereal? Flashiest packaging wins. Plato wrote about this exact problem in 380 BCE. He called it the tyranny of the ignorant, and he had a solution, a weird one. Let's be honest. Democracy is a bit like a group project where nobody read the assignment. We vote based on vibes, who sounds confident, who talks well, who had a funny clip go viral. We choose leaders the same way we choose a party DJ. Fine for parties. Less fine when that person controls nuclear weapons. Plato saw this coming. He watched Athens, the birthplace of democracy, execute Socrates for asking uncomfortable questions. He watched demagogues rise by telling people exactly what they wanted to hear. He watched wisdom get drowned out by applause and thought, this is insane. This is like letting passengers fly the plane because they're really enthusiastic about aviation. So he proposed something radical. The philosopher king. A ruler who didn't want power. Someone who spent years studying truth, justice, mathematics, and reality itself. Someone who understood governance wasn't about winning arguments. It was about making decisions that would still look sane 100 years later. Now you're probably thinking, that sounds elitist. And yeah, it kind of does. But Plato understood something we've conveniently forgotten. Not all opinions are equal. If your appendix is about to burst, you don't hold a democratic vote on surgical techniques. You find someone who knows what they're doing. Yet when it comes to steering entire civilizations, we're weirdly comfortable doing the opposite. Look around. We live in an age where you can become a political leader by being famous for being famous, where policy is decided by whoever shouts loudest, where algorithms decide what's true. Climate scientists are begging to be heard. Economists are warning about collapse. Philosophers are asking if we've thought this through, and we're too busy arguing about things that won't matter in 5 years. The problem isn't democracy itself. It's that we've confused popularity with competence, confidence with wisdom. We've built a system where the person most qualified to lead is probably smart enough to avoid the job, and the person who wants it most is often the last person who should have it. Plato called this the paradox of power. The wise avoid authority because they understand how much damage it can do. The foolish crave it because they don't. So we end up ruled by people who are excellent at getting elected and shockingly bad at everything else. Think about it. How many leaders have serious training in philosophy, ethics, or systems thinking? How many have spent real time asking, what is justice? What does it mean to live well? What do we owe to people we'll never meet? Most haven't. They've studied law, business, maybe political science. They've learned how to win, not how to be right, and it's not entirely their fault. We designed a game where winning requires short-term thinking, where honesty gets punished, where admitting uncertainty looks weak. We built a system that selects against wisdom. Then we act surprised when everything feels broken. So what did Plato actually want? Imagine this. Before you're allowed anywhere near power, you spend decades studying, not just economics or military strategy, but philosophy, mathematics, music. You learn how to think clearly, how to spot manipulation, how to recognize that most common sense is inherited prejudice dressed up as wisdom. You study the forms, Plato's idea that beneath messy reality lie ideals like justice, beauty, and goodness. And something shifts. Power stops looking like a prize and starts looking like a responsibility. A burden, not a trophy. You realize ruling well means serving people you'll never meet and making decisions whose benefits you'll never personally enjoy. Only then When you understand not just how to govern, but why it matters, society comes to you. You don't campaign, you don't sell hope, you simply know things. And because you've spent your life chasing truth instead of applause, you're given authority. Not forever, not as a tyrant, as a steward. It sounds insane, completely impractical. Except here's the catch. We already do this everywhere else. You wouldn't let someone perform surgery because they won a popularity contest. You wouldn't hire an engineer based on charisma. We accept that expertise matters. We just refuse to apply that logic to the people running everything. I'm not arguing for a literal philosopher king tomorrow. That's not the point. The point is the principle. What if our systems selected for wisdom instead of charm? What if leaders had to demonstrate deep understanding before gaining power? What if we treated governance as the complex, long-term problem it actually is? Look at what we're facing. Climate change, artificial intelligence, global inequality. These aren't slogan problems. They require people who can think across decades, disciplines, and cultures. People fluent in ethics, history, game theory, and human psychology. People who ask, what's true, instead of, how does this poll? The closest thing we have today are technocrats, central bankers, scientific advisors, public health experts, chosen for competence rather than vibes. And when things collapse, it's often because politicians override them, because popularity beats correctness. Now imagine a world where wisdom mattered as much as wealth, where philosophical training was essential for leadership, where admitting uncertainty was a strength, not a weakness, where long-term thinking wasn't political suicide. Democracy would still exist. People would still choose. But maybe they'd choose from candidates who'd proven they could think, who understood the weight of decisions, who cared more about being right than being re-elected. Plato's insight wasn't smart people should rule. It was power should go to people who understand power. People who've wrestled with moral philosophy, studied how civilizations collapse, and know enough to fear getting it wrong. The philosopher king isn't about creating elites. It's about treating leadership as a skill, learnable, teachable, demonstrable. And maybe, just maybe, we should care more about that than whether someone looks good on camera. You don't need to be Plato to see we've got a problem. We're flying a plane with pilots who've never flown before, and we chose them because they were confident about it. Maybe it's time to admit that's bonkers. You can't install a philosopher king, but you can demand better. You can learn to spot wisdom versus performance. You can ask, do you understand this, instead of, do I like you? You can become a bit more philosophical yourself. Read more. Think harder. Question everything, including this. Plato's idea isn't a solution, it's a mirror. And what it reflects is simple. We get the leaders we deserve, so maybe we should deserve better.